So far in our applications, we've been using labels to display text on the screen. But now we're going to be using labels to change the properties of the text which we are displaying. Now within our interface builder, it's going to change the screen size to an iPhone screen size. I'm going to quickly drag and drop a label in. I'm going to make it nice and big and center it. There we go. So by changing the properties, you can automatically do this within the attributes inspector of an object. You can change the color, the fonts, you can change the alignment and the background and the tint and everything else on the object from the properties of the application. And by doing this, creates the properties and then it's ready for when the application loads up. But sometimes not all the properties you want it to load up. Maybe you want the properties of our text to change depending on what our user's doing within the application. Maybe you're displaying information with the application and you want your users to be able to, if you're displaying like a large piece of text and you want them to be able to align it to the left or the right or the center, how do you do that from the app? How can you change the color size or even increase or decrease the font size to allow your users to be enabled to read the information a lot clearly? So we're going to talk about how to change the properties from within the app. And we're going to add in these all with our buttons. So we're going to let these be triggered off by interacting with buttons, nice and simple. And we're going to start with two simple ones first. So we're going to do quite a few. So I'll place in 2 buttons for now. And these are simply going to set our color. Our second one is going to set our size of font. So set size font. So we're going to change the size of the label's text and we can set the font it's being displayed. We'll add in the rest as well. We'll do that while we got it all set up. So I'll copy and paste those. Our third one will set a drop shadow on the text so we can give it a nice stand it out and kind of in your face kind of look to the text. And then we're going to have a line left. If I copy and paste that 2 more times. So we have a line left. We're then going to align it right. And obviously finally align it centered. So there are quite a few properties there. Put a capital on that. That's quite a few properties we can change to our label. So we can change the color, the font and the size of it, setting the shadow on it and how it's aligned within our label. So we're going to bring up our assistant editor and then we're going to make sure it's in our viewcontroller.h and we're going to drag and drop our label in. So I'll simply name it label. And then we need to add an action for each of these buttons. So we drag and drop it in. So this is our set color action, making sure it's an action. Connect that in. And then this is our set font size. So set size and font. Making sure again that's an action. Our set shadow. As an action, connect it up. Align left. Again, an action. And then we've got 2 more remaining. So this is our align right. Finally, an action again. And then align center. So this can be a bit time consuming, but you got to remember it's linking up the action to the button, creating the action and then adding it within our .m. So it's a lot more time. It's not as time consuming as you may think. It does save a lot of time. Created as an action and now we've added it in. Okay, so we've got our buttons added in and we've created the actions to our label. We can now go back to our standard editor and jump to our main .m or our viewcontroller.m here. So what we're going to do then is start with our first two, our set size and set color. So what we do then, very much like how we display text, we adjust the text property to our label. So we type out our label, so we do self.label, and this time we're going to change the text color property. And we're going to equal that to in two brackets, a UI color. Now this is how you select the color from the code within Xcode. So you do UI color and then you do space and then the color you want to display. So you could choose to do black color, blue color, you choose to do red color, you choose to do green color or gray color, whatever you want to display. So I'm just nice to do simple, nice red color and have a bracket and a semicolon. So by pressing this button, it's going to change the text color property of our label and change it to red, as it's already set as standard black. We're going to adjust the font size and kind of font it's been using. So again, this time we need to place this within a bracket because we're creating a UI font and we're using this string to set the font. So we do self.label space, this time we do set font. As we're not adjusting any other properties, we're setting something within it. So we do our brackets, two brackets again within the highlighted section, and like our color, we do UI font to bring it up, and then we do font with name, and then the name of the font we do @ symbol, two quotation marks, and then just a font within the system. So one of the ones we got is Verdana. That's one of these system set fonts. If you want to use a custom font, maybe one you've downloaded from an external source, which you think looks a lot much better, we talk about custom fonts in one of the coming up lectures, so make sure you keep a lookout for that. But as we go for now, we can only use system fonts. So again, if you want to go for a custom one, keep a lookout for our custom fonts lecture. In the size is where we set how big or small we want it to be. So we can set that to 25, that's pretty big. And after the two brackets, we end with a semicolon. So far we're going to change the color to red, we're going to change the font and the size of it. So if you go to build and run and test it out, and we got all our buttons here with our options for properties, so we can set the color, changing it to red, and then we can set the font and the size of our label in one go. So you can see it changes the font. It's not too much different to the system font size it is, it's a little bit more crisper, but the label got considerably bigger. So we've adjusted two, maybe three properties, we can call it three properties with the color, font and size. Okay, so we're going to move on to our shadow before we move on to our alignments. So our shadow, if I space this out here, as it's a pretty big one, we do self.label, and what we're going to be working with to add the shadow on is the layer of our label. So we do .layer, and the layer we need to edit to add a shadow kind of color, and the color of our shadow is going to equal, just like how we added the colour to our font, but this time we need to do two brackets because we're working differently with a CG colour. Do UI colour, space, and we're going to have a black colour, and have a bracket, space, CG colour to add that on with a semicolon. So we've selected our shadow colour to be black, but now we need to add a few properties to how we want to display this shadow. For example, we do self.label .layer once more, and this time we're going to do shadow opacity. So now we can select how strong we want this shadow to appear. So the weakest is 0 and the strongest is being 1. So being 1 will be fully black and 0 will be completely see-through, like it won't even be there. So we're going to do 0.5 to pull it at a 50% opacity, which shouldn't be so harsh when you look at it. And then we need to move on to the radius, so how big or how much of the shadow it's going to display, so how much it kind of shows away from our label. So we do self.label.layer again, and this time we do shadow radius, and we space equal that to a number. So again, 0 being the smallest, but 1 is not the biggest. You could go as big as you want, but 1.0f will be our radius, so we could put in 10 or 100. The more you put in, the larger the radius is showing on the screen. So we selected our colour to be black, we selected it to be a 50% opacity, and the radius to be kind of like 1 pixel away, or 1 kind of millimeter, or whatever you want to call it, away from our label. All that's left to do then is set the offset. So where is the shadow being displayed? Is it displaying to the bottom left? Is the shadow being displayed to the bottom right? You know, top right, top left, underneath. So you can now set the position of where you want the shadow. So again, you do self.label.layer once more, and we finish this off with shadow offset. Now it's going to equal our CG size make, which you want the top one here, and this will make us two floats with the width and the height. Now we don't want it to go anywhere to the width, so we set that to 0. We just want it to see underneath our text, so we're going to set that to 2. So it just displays a little bit underneath our text, and we end that with our semicolon. Okay, so we set it to black, we set it to 50% opacity, and we set the radius to display 1, kind of away from our text, and we kind of set the position to display underneath our text. So if we build and run and just test it out. Now because it's going to be a black shadow, we probably won't see it as well within our black text. So we're going to set our colour and our font size, and then we set our shadow, which you can now see is black, 50%, so it's not as strong, and we set it to go 2 pixels underneath our text, which you can see it's displaying underneath. Now if you wanted to display above, you would then do 0 will be center, and if you do -2, it will go above. Same goes for the width. If you do 2, it will go to the right, or -2, it will go to the left. Okay, so then finally we move on to the alignment. So we do self.label text alignment, is that's what we want to adjust, and we want that to simply equal our NS text alignment, and this one is going to be to our left, and we end that with a semicolon. And what I'm going to do to save some time, I'm going to copy and paste this onto our remaining buttons, changing the alignment to this one being right, and to this one finally being center. So again, when we press one of these buttons, it will align the text either left or right or center to our label. So for the final time, we go to build and run. So within our text properties, we can change the color, the font and size. We can set the shadow. We can align it left, right, and even back to center within our application. So this is a way on how you can adjust the text properties from within the application. If you wanted this stuff to be pre-performed before the application loads, you can go to adjust it within the interface builder. But for stuff like setting a shadow or the custom font, if you want that to appear when the user does it, we need to place this stuff within the view did load. So as soon as the view loads, this code will perform it before the user even notices it. So when we were talking about previously about the fonts, you can see here we got Verdana, which is a system font, and we can only use system fonts within our application. The only way you can use custom fonts is by importing your own font and then setting it up within the application, which we talk about in the next lecture. So this is how you change the properties of text within your application. And in the next lecture, we're going to be talking about adding a custom font and displaying it within the application.